Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Universal Talk. On today's show, we ponder the question, are there programs such as MKULTRA that are charged with creating super soldiers? Let's present the case. First, we must consider the various top-secret clearances and the secrecy related to Black Ops projects, not to mention the amount of money that is funneled into such projects. What if there were secret projects going on that were meant to create the ultimate human weapon? In a moment, we'll have Mr. David Corso on the show. Mr. Corso was part of Project Talent, MKULTRA military program, and has testified that the U.S. military may have a program of super soldiers. He has been interviewed on Project Camelot and recently been on the Jesse Ventura show, Conspiracy Theory. Mr. David Corso, welcome to Universal Talk.
Well, thank you, Joseph. It's my pleasure to be here.
So, how does one get selected for one of these programs?
That's an interesting question. I can answer it in this manner. Usually they prefer people of Native American and or Celtic or a mixed background.
Now, why does the nationality make a difference?
The psychic abilities of those particular groups of people.
Okay. Are you saying that it's heightened in that group or those groups?
From what I've seen, I have to believe it is.
Okay. Now, on another avenue of them recruiting, do you think that it's more possible, I guess, for a person to be chosen for one of these programs if they have a family member like an uncle, a father, or somebody else who's in this military? Do you think it goes down to generations, like family members?
I'm absolutely convinced that it is. My oldest brother, who is now on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge, had to be part of that.
Okay.
He had to be a very early generation, like back in World War II.
Okay. So tell us your story. Like, where does this begin with you?
This begins with me probably when I was about 5 or 6. And I was thinking about this the other night. And if anyone has listened to Duncan and commentary on how he had a, pardon me, I'm trying to think this morning. If he had a hardware store that had a door. Well, I got thinking about that. And there was a guy named Harry Moore had a hardware store. He was a veteran and only had one arm.
Okay.
And he had a room that no one ever went into. And I asked him one time, what's behind that door, Harry? He said, you'll find out. I guess I did.
Okay. So this started when you were like 5 or 6 years old.
6 years old.
And so what happened? Like you picture a normal childhood, or if you won't even call it normal, but children, you get up, you go to kindergarten, then you're into first grade by the time you're on, 6 years old. And what was different about your experience from just simply going to and from school?
During the, when school started in September and got out in May, normal memories. But what I had was memories of being with my uncle in the summertime. And one time when I was sitting talking with my mother after I got out of the surface, I said, I have these memories of being with my Uncle Ed, learning how to be a peddler. And she looked at me and smiled and said, you were never with your Uncle Ed. I said, where was I? And she looked at me and gave me that look that said, don't ask any more questions. She said, as you get older, you will figure it out.
Okay.
So apparently, from the time I was 6 until probably at age 11, I was a summer student, shall we say, of Project Talent.
Okay. And
now,
was there a group, or was it the United States military? Was it a black ops that nobody knows about? Like,
let's just say this. Project Talent is part of, I believe it's 173 or 193 programs underneath MKULTRA.
Okay. And what does that mean to, like, the listeners that don't know anything about MKULTRA?
It means the government is tied up into this in ways that you can't even begin to imagine.
Okay.
My training was only in the summer because of my particular talents, and I was a team leader. Now, they take a young person, and they do many things. One of them, they split that child's personality into different, what we call alters. And they do it through physical torture, mental torture, sexual torture, psychological torture. In my case, because I have an extreme dislike and impartiality toward all things reptile, they put me in a casket and closed the lid with snakes and frogs and toads and all kinds of reptilian things. Didn't take long to crack my brain. No. And I inherited that from my mother, who happens to be Celtic.
Okay.
Yeah, she's still Celtic.
Okay, so let's fast forward ahead, maybe into your teenage years, and maybe like right out of high school. Like, after high school and after all the training that you've been exposed to and all the torture, as you say, what came about after high school?
I went straight into the military because that was my ticket out of Parker, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And how did your family take that? Did your dad want you to go into the military, or your mom?
No, he wanted me to stay there and run the store with him. He had a big grocery store. He had 2 appliance stores. He had a Chrysler Plymouth DeSoto agency and a bakery and a 540-acre farm.
Awesome. So what made you decide to go to the military then, ultimately?
Well, when I looked around, the major industry in that part of the country was a glass company that made glass, bottles, and so on and so forth. I looked at these guys that had been there all their lives. They had retired. What'd they do? They sat there in a bar and drank all day.
Mm-hmm.
I said, there's more to life than this little town. I'm going to go find it. My ticket out of here is to win the service, get an education, and see what that brings.
Okay. So let's talk about your attitude at that particular time. Did you feel like you were more of a free spirit than anybody else at that point?
I felt like I was, quote, normal, unquote.
Okay. But, like, for instance, did you have any influence or time to reflect during your high school years or thereafter? Did anybody influence you in any way that, family members, for instance, that may have said anything to you that you didn't really want to listen to what they had to say? You wanted to do your own thing.
Well, I moved out of my parents' house when I was 12 years old.
Okay.
I supported myself. I took part in school activities, and I worked. And I ran with a gang. I ran with I ran with a crowd of guys that was 8 to 12 years older than myself, and I was accepted as a full equal from day one.
Okay.
Now, did I think that was unusual? No, because I thought I was a pretty special guy then.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out I'm special just like everybody else in this world.
All right. So, you go back to the nationality. What's your nationality? You said your mother was Celtic. What about your father?
My father's purebred Sicilian.
Okay. Does that have any influence on where you are? Or did you have any opposing forces at that particular time that didn't want you to go into the military?
No.
Okay.
Nope. It wouldn't matter what they would have said. I was 18. I could legally sign for myself, so I went.
Okay. Great. All right. So fast forward into the military. Did you do the typical training that most people go to boot camp and all that kind of stuff?
Yep. And then when I had finished electronic technician school, radar technician actually, a runner came down and said, Corso, there's a Navy captain wants to see you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, describe him. I said, no, better, so let me describe him to you. So I did, and I said, Captain Freeman. Walked in, and I said, Captain Freeman, what can I do for you today? He said, you'll find me 9 more. You got 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
So I find 9 more guys that I could put into a team.
Okay.
So I went down and I talked to the guys and got 9 more and went back up, and he called Lieutenant Commander and says, Commander, he says, have these transferred in the next 10 minutes. And then we were off and running.
Okay.
And we went through all kinds of other training. And it was interesting. We never argued. We never fought among the 10 of us.
And you were the leader?
Yeah.
Okay. So what types of, manipulation or training does one receive to become this super soldier?
Well, now, I just never really thought until recently if these other 9 individuals were part of Project Talent, but I have to assume they were.
Okay.
And it was interesting. We went through jump training and actually what they call BUDS training and explosives training and this training and that training. Our first assignment was we were sent to Germany to bring back the families of 2 code clerks that were fixing to defect to Russia.
Okay. And how did that go?
Without a hitch.
Okay.
Did you catch what I said? That we were to bring back the families.
Right.
We left 2 bodies. We left 2 bodies in Germany. And
so
that was.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, it was an easy 600-meter shot. 4 of the guys went through the doors. We shot the 2 individuals involved.
That were holding them?
No, they were there waiting for Russian agents to come pick them up.
Oh.
And the guy stepped in and said, your husbands are dead. You have a choice. You can die here or you can go back to the States. Your choice. I mean, weeping, wailing, and tears, and